Unfiltered stories, unapologetic truth, unmistakably brave. Hello and welcome to the BraveAF Podcast. My name is Jessica and I'm your host. I'm excited, I'm honored, I'm humbled that you are here again today. Today, I have a special guest for you in the house. I want to introduce to you Bobby Newell. Right, thanks. So we had to reschedule this a couple times because I had, some health issues, kidney stones, winter storms, things like that. Life happens, right? As we know. But who is Bobby? Let me give you just a little bit of knowledge about her, but she's going to share more of her story with you. So Bobby is a somatic experiencing therapist, an executive coach, and also the founder of Mindful Collaboration, which is here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and which we'll talk about that a little bit here in a moment. She's got over 2 decades of experience with this, so not her first rodeo. She's been doing this for a while, right? She helps professionals and organizations transform stress into sustainable success through embodied leadership, workplace wellness, and nervous system regulation. So, Bobby, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really
Of
appreciate it.
course.
And it's so nice to get to see you face to face.
It's crazy how social media works, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
we connect with people through whatever means, different common interests, and then it just kind of evolves from there. So I appreciate you coming on the show. One of the things that we want to talk about specifically is this book that you have recently published, which, by the way, I did buy and read.
Yep, awesome.
Shift Happens, Reclaim Your Energy and Focus Without Quitting Your Job. So we're going to talk about a little bit about what the book's about, but also just kind of touch on, what the writing process looked like for you and how did we get from there to here. So before I go too far into any of that, can you tell us maybe just a little bit, like, you've been doing therapy for 20 plus years, is it almost 30 years now?
Was 30. Yeah. Wild.
Crazy. You must love it.
I
You
don't
must
feel
love it.
good.
So how did you get into therapy? Like, when did you decide helping people is your passion and something that you wanted to pursue? Did you just know that from early on, or what kind of brought you to that place?
Yeah. So I am the product of teenage parents. So I think that set the foundation. And I have a very blended family. My dad's on his fourth marriage, my mom is on her third. And so I have lots of steps and halves and one sister that we share both parents. So life growing up was a lot. And
Mhm.
I always knew that things could be different. Like it didn't have to be the way that it was, and that my parents just needed better tools and they didn't have them. So that kind of, I think, just drove me towards that path. I've always wanted to be a therapist. And I started out working with kids and actually worked in the court system with kids. And that was like my all time favorite job.
Yeah.
Um, I love that job so much. It was never a dull moment. And then I had kids and I was like,
I'm sure it brought a lot of unique challenges.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I had kids and I was like, I don't want to have kids and work with kids. It's a lot. So I started
It
working
is.
with adults and decided I wanted to work with the hardest people I could find, like the people that were struggling the most and who really needed, to get out of the hole they were in, right? And to see that there
Mhm.
was there was better on the other side. That's kind of what I became known for. Is like, oh, give them to Bobby. Bobby will take those really hard clients. And so did that. And then I just kind of fall into things, which is so interesting in my life that I fell into somatic. I didn't know anything about it before I signed up for it and loved that, oh, I could do things differently in my body. Like I didn't have to I didn't have to just react to things. I could actually make a decision about how I want to respond to something. And that was just such an amazing gift.
Right, right. And so specifically somatic, how is that, if you were to try to put it in a nutshell,
Hmm.
different from the standard therapy, if you will? Like you mentioned, it's about being in tune with your body, but
Yeah.
what is the elements of that that make it unique?
Yeah. So therapy for the most part up to this current day and age has been from top down, meaning it's been focusing on what's happening in your brain. Like, what thoughts are you having about something? How do we change those thoughts? And somatic is going bottom up. Like, what's happening in your body? Like, if this event happens, so like, let's say you have a car accident. The car accident isn't the trauma; it's that you didn't get to respond the way that you needed to keep yourself safe, and that energy got locked in your body somewhere. That's the trauma. And so I work with that. Like, where's that energy? How is it impacting you now? Even though this car accident was maybe 20 years ago? And can we move you through that and get that energy unstuck and move it up and
Mhm.
out?
Mhm. Yeah, I share a similar passion for just trying to understand where people come from and helping them or whatnot. And, to your point, it was always about what was wrong up here, right? Not necessarily wrong, but why do I think this way? Why do I
Right.
feel that way? What is going on? And I know I was referred to the book The Body Keeps the Score, and just in the last few years, I think there's a lot more awareness about the things that we carry, not just the way we think, but just the way we behave, the way that we respond. And we don't always know without the help of a professional why that is. But then when you do, it's like taking your power back, right? Because you can
Yep.
realize, okay, I do have some say in how I respond to something, and I can change things once you know the root source of that. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
I appreciate that there's more awareness around that. I'm learning. I appreciate people like you who are able to advocate for that and bring healing to people because it's difficult. Trauma can be, present itself in so many different ways and be caused by so many different things. It's not just a one size fits all
Yeah.
for sure. I also came from a very blended, crazy family. It was funny you were sharing your story, and I'm like, I also share one sister with both parents, but then I have three older half brothers, an older half sister. There's rumors of possibly another one that we we haven't met. Um, so there's unique dynamics there. I've got
Yeah.
sisters and brothers that are significantly older than me. But I grew up with just my younger sister with both my parents and divorced, lots of unique childhood experiences and that certainly formed me as I grew up, and I'm still learning how some of that stuff has
Yeah.
impacted me, just whether in my own relationships or how I parent my children,
Hmm.
and that sort of thing. And so I could relate to that a lot, and I think a lot of people can, right? We all. So your book, which was awesome, by the way,
Oh,
I
thank
loved
you.
it, and I'm going to let you explain it a little bit, just what it's about, but. Um, I could relate to a lot of things in it because it's talking about stress and how that presents itself in the workplace and how we respond to people. And it isn't always what's happening at that moment, but
Hmm.
something that, is triggering within us, right? Um, I was able to go through the different steps. And so the book itself, y'all, and I'll put some links out there too. And it's probably reversed when I do the recording, but shift happens. But shift, SHIFT, stands for specific parts of the process, right? And do you want to share that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So it's slow down, hear your body, interrupt the pattern,
Right.
find what's true,
Yes.
and take aligned action, right? So
Yes.
basically, you want to notice what's coming up for you in your body when something happens and how you want to respond to it. Like, so take a beat. That was like the biggest gift I learned in my life is like, oh, an event happens and there's like some space. I can take a moment before I
Mhm.
react, right?
Mhm.
Because when I got divorced, I was just reacting. And then learning that, I was like, oh, this is so powerful. I don't have to just do what I thought I had to do.
Mhm.
But but then looking at like what's in line with my values? Like what's important to me? Am I respecting my boundaries? Am I asking for what I need? Am I saying no to what I don't want? Can I accept a no? Like all of that is held within shift. And teaching people that throughout my work over the decades has been just such a gift and helped shape this book. We almost all of us go to work, right? Even if we're at home with our children and work, that's work, right? Like so
Mhm.
we're all doing this job and it's the bulk of our day. It's the bulk
Right.
of our week. And wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to hate it or it wasn't making us feel burnt out? Because you want to be present for your family when you get home. You want to enjoy your life. You want to be able to participate in hanging out with your friends or doing some hobbies or relaxing. And if your nervous system isn't regulated, you're probably not doing any of that.
Absolutely. I mean, I've had, previous jobs. The job I'm at now is not so bad, but, other ones that were very stimulating in the wrong way and
Yeah.
triggering, and so I would come home and I was always on edge. It was like, my family didn't have a chance. I came home and I was already just at that peak,
Yeah.
right, where it was like, I'm gonna snap at any little thing, and it's really difficult, especially when you have young children at home and you come home, all day, your nervous system is at high alert. You come home and those kids, they don't get that, right? They don't know. They're looking for you to calm their nervous system.
Right.
And the last thing want, and I say that, loosely, is that, these kids hanging on you, right? And they're asking for more and they need more from you. And you're like, I don't have anything left to give. And it's
Right.
draining, it's exhausting, it's stressful. And unfortunately, that can also have a long-term impact on those kids, right? Because they're used to going to mom to get soothing and get, some sort of recourse from their stressful day,
Right.
and we aren't necessarily feeding it to them in the way they need or doing responding in a healthy way. And so then it just carries forward in the pattern. So I think stuff like your book is so important because again, as we become more and more aware of why we do the things we do, and we can work to change those things. Maybe, I always joke, I'm like, I would love for my kids not to have to figure this out in their 40s like I am, right? Like, what if we had this information when they were in high school? Like, I try to give them the tools and resources, and I'm still learning, obviously, but we all are. But it's imagine if we could give that to them at a much earlier
Right.
stage, so that they're not trying to reverse 30 years of bad patterns and things that they didn't know.
Right. Yeah. I think I would be such a great parent now.
Right? Right? Can I
I'm
just
too old
take
for that.
you over?
But but all of mine are young adults now, and they got what they got. So
Yeah, exactly. I
yeah.
apologize all the time. Mine are
Right.
19 and 16, and I'm like, "Look,
Mhm.
I'm way better than I was, trust me."
Right.
I'm doing it, I'm learning, I'm trying to, and part of that is trying to be, a pretty transparent person, and I try to
Mhm.
be honest about the good and the bad and the ugly. But, I always try to tell the kids, I'm like, when I'm learning things, I share it with them,
Mhm.
or I find somebody on social media who says it more eloquently or in
Right.
their, language. I'm like, "Listen, this is important." And you think they're ignoring you, you think they don't listen, and then every once in a while they surprise you and they're like, "Well, mom, like, keep your head up, or where's the silver lining?" And I'm like,
Right.
"You do listen. Oh my."
Yeah. Yeah, and they watch what you do too. Yeah.
They do.
So
They
they're
do.
totally
They watch
watching
how you
everything.
react, and
Yeah.
and and they, they listen and watch more than we sometimes realize, which is important that,
Yeah.
we do that. So, when did you decide, or when did it hit you that, you know what, the world needs a book. We need to put this process in place, you know, um, was it just, a middle of the night dream? Have you always wanted to write books? Like, where did it come from?
I never wanted to write a book. I was adamant I was not
Okay.
gonna write a book. But I joined a mastermind group, and it is just filled with lovely people that push you to do things, that you think are outside of your comfort zone. And a lot of them had written
Mhm.
books, and I was like, "Okay." I sat on it for probably a year, year and a half, and I was like, "Okay, I think this is if I'm gonna do it, this is what I wanna do it on and who I want it to be
Mhm.
for." And I wanted it
Mhm.
to be, pretty straightforward and easy for, just an average person to read. Doesn't have to be a therapist, right?
Mhm.
So I wanted it to be tools that they could actually use and be useful. But yeah, I mean, I kind of got pushed into it in a good way.
Mhm.
And it really wasn't that bad. It definitely it had its challenging moments when it comes to, like, deadline, but you need that I need that to push me to finish
Yeah.
it, or I would just keep going with it.
Procrastinate forever and sit
Yeah.
on it and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
just say,
it's
"Well, it's
it's,
not perfect enough."
well, it's awesome that you've got a mastermind, that you've locked yourself in. I've been in a few of them. I'm actually probably gonna join another because that is an environment that's ripe for growth, right? They
Yeah.
do push us outside of your comfort zone. You feel a little bit more courageous when you're surrounded by people who are looking for that, right? The right people. I mean, I've talked about this before on the show, and I tell people all the time, like, your circle matters. Who you spend the most time with matters, because that's, it creates this safe space for you to challenge yourself, right? To stretch yourself, to go outside of your comfort zone and know that if it doesn't go the way you had planned, or if something doesn't work, so to speak, you're gonna be okay. You're still supported. You're still, you're gonna learn from it. There's always a positive takeaway from those experiences that sometimes otherwise we aren't brave enough to try. If you're surrounded by people who are critical of you all the time or judgmental of you, for me, that was before I got divorced. I had an ex that was very critical. I'll never forget when I started photography and I sold my first big package. And I came home proud for the day. And he was like, I can't believe you duped somebody into paying that much for pictures. And I was like,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
okay. It was very negative, but that was the energy I had. And so I say that because that unfortunately was a huge part of my life for a long time. And so I'm still breaking those
Mhm.
thoughts and things that I hear in my mind, right? That voice that I'm constantly hearing, like, who do you think you are? Or why do you think you deserve that? Or you're worthy of that? And it's a brutal habit
Yeah.
to break through. It's really
That's,
good for me.
showing up for you, like, when
Oh,
you're
it's
trying going to do something, yeah.
everything. Everything. I mean, I was with him for 19 years, so it was a huge part of my programming, if you will. And
Mhm, mhm,
not to place blame. I'm just saying that was a huge part of my
mhm.
environment. And so when I first actually got out of that a little bit. I've been in network marketing in a million different ways, but long story short, the last company I was with a while back, there was a lot of focus on personal development. And I got involved in more of like the mastermind groups and the leadership groups. And for me, it was 2016 or so. It was just such a huge shift for me to realize how much control I actually had and that ways to determine between truth and what I was telling myself was truth and just kind of looking at the big picture. And so then it started the reprogramming, and it's a work in progress. I mean, it's a lot of unprogramming to do,
Right,
but so shift was very relatable to me, not only from a work aspect but also from home.
right,
Like how I respond to things, or in a new relationship now, like how they say something, I'm like, I might go down a long path thinking, oh, well, you said this, so this is going to happen. This is going to happen. I had all these expectations based on my experience. And I'm learning that that isn't, everybody's not the same. And so
right.
it's crazy.
But that all
It's
bleeds
crazy.
together, right? So, I'm sure that that pattern may show up at work for you, right? Like, that there may be times with I'm gonna say the right person, not meaning that in a positive way, but somebody who maybe, responds to life in just as a negative way, that you might notice, like, you're having a response to that, right?
Mhm.
And that's what I want people
Absolutely.
thinking about is like, "Oh, okay, this is how outside life comes into work life and where I can start to interrupt the pattern."
Absolutely. Yeah, there was a lot of, especially, before previous jobs and different things, I would see, maybe I was hesitant to bring an idea up
Mhm.
just because of fear of judgment or criticism, or, who
Yeah.
are you to speak up in the room, even though I was more than qualified. And what I was talking on, it was just keep my voice small. It was something that had been programmed, and even before my marriage. This was in my home life too.
Mhm,
With
mhm.
That's a whole nother story for another day. We won't go into a therapy session for Jess today, but I know why I messed up. But I'll never forget being in. It was a performance review with a boss, and she literally said to me, she's like, "You underestimate yourself so much. Like I
Mhm.
can see where you hesitate, you hold back." And she's like, "You have every right to speak up. Your ideas are good." And it was just reaffirming of something, but for me, it was more this awareness of, okay, other people can tell that I'm holding back. Other
Mm.
people can tell that I'm timid in certain environments. Now, other times they're probably like, please stop talking. But it's just, it depends on the topic. But it was just interesting to hear that someone else could see that and
Yeah.
call me out on it, so to speak. And I was like, oh gosh. And like we were saying with kids and stuff earlier, I know my kids have seen that with me. They're like,
Mhm.
Mom, like, why don't you do this? Why don't you have this business? Why don't you do that? Or, follow your dreams. And I'm
Mm.
like, you be brave, but I'm too scared. And so that's, part of this podcast, right? The Brave as Fuck podcast is me showing up brave even when I don't feel like it or
Right.
I'm scared.
Right.
I'm doing it anyway. I'm here. I'm doing it. So
Right. I love that. Yeah.
it's exciting. So how long did it take you to write the book? I know you said you sat on the idea for about a year and a half or so. How long did it take to actually put it cover to cover and finish the process, do you think?
Mm. Under 6 months. I'd say maybe 4 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's
And so then
It's really not that hard when it's this kind of concept and it can just flow out of you. Because these are things I already teach people. These are things I already know. So for me, it was just bigger picture of like, how do I frame something? It's been a long time since graduate school. How do I frame
Right.
something that isn't for me? I need to see it on paper and I need to touch it. And like, so I'd have to like print the book out and like go through it. I'd be like, oh, this is a lot of printing, but for me, I've got to be able to do that, have my hands in it, and like write down notes.
Yeah.
Um, that really was the hardest part for me.
Yeah, I'm definitely an old school person as well. I probably would print and write things, and I've if I write them, I remember them better. Even
Yeah.
responses or different things. It's interesting, like with a if there's a tough topic I want to talk about, right? I'm like, maybe it's not appropriate for a text conversation, but if I text it out or type it out, at least I can see it, I can visualize, the
Yeah.
flow of it, I can gather my thoughts, if you will, and that sort of thing. So, um,
Yeah.
I get that. But to your point, this is something that you're passionate about, right? Like, this is what you do day in and day out. So it's probably a little bit easier to write that. You're not coming up with a story, right? You're not trying to
Right.
think of, how
Right.
can I be creative? This is just, what you know and know so well, which is awesome. So then you decide to do it. Now, did you work with a publisher? Or you self-published, or how does
Self-published, through
self-published?
Amazon, and that
Okay.
is, like, such an incredibly easy process.
That's what I've heard. So it's
Yeah.
interesting. I have write a book on my vision board. It's
Okay.
been on my vision board for long, long time, probably.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And I actually started one in 2020, and then I kinda because we had a lot more free time at home and kinda paused on it, and so it's next up. Podcast was there, and then
Mm,
book was not long behind it, so I know it'll happen, but I've heard a lot of folks say that Amazon makes it fairly simple process to put it
yeah.
out there when you're ready. So you make the decision, and then you have the moment of putting it out there. Describe
Mhm.
what was that moment like for you?
It's so easy to get caught up in, what's how do I wanna phrase that? The chokehold of, like, not wanting to be seen for me,
Mhm. Mhm.
and, not putting myself out there. That didn't happen too much.
Okay, that's
So
awesome.
I was kinda surprised, and maybe that's because I felt fairly confident in what I was putting out there.
Mm.
But there was that moment when you upload it to Amazon where you're like, okay, it's out there.
Right?
But after that,
Yep.
it was really okay. I'd already gotten. I think it was helpful because I already had a team set up for when I went live that was going to push the book out, and they had already read through it and given me feedback. So I already felt good about what was in there. So it really wasn't too bad.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think, at least from my experience, the buildup and the anxiety beforehand,
Yeah.
sometimes we make it far worse than the
Yeah.
actual event, right? Because we start to second guess ourselves or wonder, is somebody gonna listen, or are they in my case for the podcast, like, is anybody actually gonna listen to this? And
Right.
even when even though I had people telling me we would or we do or we wanna do this or be this, it was always that fear of just, but what if? What if it, and then to your point, it's like you get ready and you do it. And for me, it was almost like when I launched the podcast, it was almost like a moment of relief. Like I finally did this dream that I said I wanted to do. And I know the book wasn't necessarily a long-term dream for you, but you had made that decision, right? And it was almost like, all right, I've done it. I published a book, I imagine it was probably something like that and putting it out there, and maybe some moments of like, okay, well, what if no one buys it? What if no one reads it? What happens? But
Yeah.
it's short-lived, right? But there's just so many different moments throughout that process where we have an opportunity to chicken out or
Mhm.
second guess ourselves or allow, someone else's doubt to influence our abilities. I think sometimes we just get stuck, paralyzed in the fear of the unknown, even if they're not warranted.
Right. Yeah. And I think this is where having the mastermind was helpful because they were holding me accountable. Okay, you said you're going to publish it by this date. Like, or, are you doing the steps to be there?
Mhm.
And even when I tried to back out because it was a tight push there at the end, they were like, absolutely not. Like,
Mm.
you're 2 weeks out before Thanksgiving. You can't. you can't wait.
Right.
So I was like,
Right.
why can't I publish this in January? Like what?
You
And they're
can
like, nope.
publish it whenever you want, but nope, you
Technically,
said.
yes.
You
Right.
said, technically. Well, and that's how I felt about, again, with the show. I had been on there for a bit, and it was like I kept putting it out, and I'm like, well, when I have more time, or well, when I, lose weight, I'll be more comfortable in front of the camera or
Right.
whatever. I always had some reasons. And it's funny because I had done a couple videos, like short promo videos, if you will, about I was like, all right, I'm gonna launch this podcast. I woke up one day and just made the decision. I was tired of my own excuses. I was
Yeah.
like, and so I created my own accountability by just putting it out there. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do a podcast. It's coming. And they're like, we've heard you say that before. I'm like, all right, December 16th, I'm launching it. And I'll never forget my boyfriend was like, are you ready to go? I'm like, absolutely not. Nope. I have nothing. Like I knew topics and I knew kind of framework wise, but I was like, nope, buying the software now. I'm going to figure it out. And I'm like, now I have to because I told people. And you can always take the video down, but it was my way. I know for me, I don't like to let others down. So I try to use that to my own, advantage, if you will, as far as like, all right, if I say I'm going to do it, I know I'm going to keep my word to others, even if I'm not always great at keeping my word to myself. Working on that, but yeah, so that was my self-inflicted mastermind accountability, if you will.
Right.
Let me just
Exactly. Yeah.
tell the world, but it worked.
You do
I
what
put it out
works.
there.
Yeah.
It does. It does. I'm like, yeah, well, I know this will push me.
Yeah.
So here we are, and I love that you were able to do that. So do you think you will ever write another book, or do you think this is a one and done for you?
I don't know. I already have a workbook in mind for the skills. So yeah, probably. I could see writing another one. Even I think is translatable to other parts of your life, like kids you mentioned. Like, sure, yeah. I mean, I could totally see doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had mentioned early in the call about, realizing that you didn't have to react in the moment, right? Really taking that time to
Hmm.
step back and pause. And that's something that I've had to learn and work on and still working on is that, those emotional responses, the initial ones aren't usually the best ones, depending
Right.
on the circumstance. And it's like, okay, the damage or the fallout from that reaction could be far worse than what, I'm really facing in the moment. I just need to take a step back. And I've also had to learn that a lot of times other people's reactions aren't personal to me, right? They're being triggered by whatever I've said or, their frame of
Right.
reference or what has happened in that moment. And so for me to again have that awareness now, I can sometimes take a step back and say, okay, I know you responded this way, which was harshly and not
Hmm.
appreciated, but it
Right.
wasn't me that you were quote unquote attacking or upset with. It was what I said or the significance of what I said or what you
Mm,
thought it meant, like there's
right.
so much processing behind the scenes that we don't always understand at the time, but when you look back at it later, I'm like, "Oh, you weren't thinking that at all. I was thinking that, and I
Right.
just
Yeah.
projected it on you." Oh,
Yeah.
well, silly me.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. I definitely think that shift also is translatable to leaders. The more they can start recognizing like how people are showing up and maybe then how they can shift, pun intended, their response to people,
Yeah.
I think is that I mean, there's another book right there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, because you're
Yeah.
right. Learning how to I've managed teams of people and people are motivated differently, right? And
Yeah.
they respond to, let's say, correction differently. Some,
Yeah.
they want to have a different kind of conversation. And a lot of people are prone to be on the defense right away. So if you understand a little bit without, you don't necessarily have to know their whole personal lives and their history, but you
Hmm.
can start to have meaningful conversations, asking the right questions, understanding how well do they respond to different types of environments and some people aren't good in certain situations and that's okay,
Hmm.
and learning that if a good leader will take that into consideration, assuming they can still do the job, right?
Right.
But
Right. Yeah.
and that sort of thing. So the book is on Amazon and we'll put some links in there for people to, be able to order that and read it. Like I said, I have it. It was great. And to your point, it was an easy read, meaning I didn't feel like it was, so over my head that I couldn't grasp everything. I've read a couple, I've read those
Yeah.
books too where they're based in science and they're great and I can't get through the first two chapters because I'm like, I feel really dumb right now. This was not that. This was great.
Right.
I could get through it. It was a smooth, quick read. I took a fair amount of notes, and again, just kind of what can I do? And you've got a lot of links in the book as well with activities and things that they can
Yeah.
do to look at as well. So That's super helpful. So I appreciate that. Thank you for coming on the show today. Thank you so much for doing this. It was a pleasure. I appreciate you coming on. And is there anything else that you want to just share
Yeah.
before we sign off? Yeah.
Yeah, if any of your folks are interested in just learning more about nervous system regulation or how to show up differently at work, I have a school community. It's called the Shift Reset, and it addresses all of that. And it's free, so you're welcome to join for free, and you don't have to pay for it. There's also a paid version if they're interested in learning a little bit more, but I think free is always the best place to start. So,
Free's a great place. It's a little less scary. It doesn't feel so committal. People are more willing to try it, and then they jump in and say, "Okay, yeah, I actually need this." And
right.
well,
Yeah.
awesome. We'll get all of those links out there as well, and make sure that everybody's got what they need. And thank you again for coming on the show.
Yeah.
I'll talk
Thank
to
you
you
so
soon.
much. All right.
All
Thanks.
right. Bye bye.